The Christmas dinner table in my Ottawa home shimmered with candlelight, the aroma of roasted venison and maple pecan pie masking a venomous betrayal. My son stood, his voice ablaze, slicing through the frigid air, and spat, "You're no longer our family. Pack your bags and get out." His wife's cruel sneer twisted the knife deeper, mocking every scar I earned in Afghanistan. Decades of sacrifice, my blood, my sweat, my wife's dying wish trampled like snow under their greed. My chest burned, rage and agony clawing at my soul, a pain so raw it could shatter ice on Lake Rideau. They thought they'd crushed me. They were dead wrong. I'm Gordon McKay. I'm 60 years old, and I'll fight until my last breath. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, whether it's somewhere beautiful in Canada or anywhere else in this amazing world. That Christmas dinner betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was the wreckage of a life I built over decades. I'm a veteran of Afghanistan, where I faced death in the desert to keep my family safe 6,000 kilometers away in Ottawa. This wooden house, nestled in the snowy outskirts of the city, was my wife Eleanor's dream. We hammered every nail together, her laughter warming the cold Canadian nights. I raised Liam here, taught him to skate on the frozen Rideau Canal, paid for his university in Toronto, and held Eleanor's hand as cancer stole her away. All for what? For my own son to spit in my face. Liam and his wife Chloe now sit in my dining room, scheming to sell this house Eleanor's legacy for some flashy Toronto condo project. "You're holding us back," Liam snapped last week, his voice sharp as a skate blade. "This place is falling apart, and you're too old to care." Chloe nodded, her eyes glinting like frost on a window pane. "It's time to modernize," she said, her words dripping with greed. "They think I'm a relic, a burden to be discarded, but I've survived worse than their betrayal." The sting of Liam's words at that Christmas dinner lingered like a bitter Ottawa wind, cutting deeper with every passing day. My home, a sturdy wooden haven on the outskirts of the city, held memories of Eleanor, her gentle hands kneading dough for maple pecan pie, her voice humming "O Canada" while we strung Christmas lights. I'd built this place for her, for Liam, for a family I thought would stand as strong as the pines along the Rideau Canal. But now, Liam and Chloe were tearing it apart, their greed ablaze against everything I'd fought for. I'd faced Taliban fire 6,000 kilometers away in Kandahar, carried shrapnel scars on my shoulder, and buried Eleanor after cancer ravaged her. Yet nothing prepared me for the betrayal of my own blood. It started with small signs, like cracks in a frozen lake. Last month, I caught Liam rifling through my desk, his fingers grazing the deed to this house. "Just organizing, Dad," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. But his voice had that same edge I'd heard when he demanded I sell the place. Chloe was worse, her polished nails tapped impatiently as she scrolled through real estate listings on her phone, her voice sharp as she complained about the outdated cedar walls Eleanor had loved. "This house could be worth a fortune as an Airbnb," she said one evening, her eyes gleaming like the ice on Dow's Lake. "You're sitting on a gold mine, Gordon, and doing nothing with it." I clenched my jaw, the weight of my old service medals in my pocket grounding me. They didn't see a home, they saw dollar signs. Then came the email that shattered any lingering hope. Late one night, I was clearing old photos from my laptop pictures of Liam at 5, grinning as he wobbled on skates during a Kannada hockey game. My heart ached for that boy, the one who'd clung to my hand on the rink. But as I clicked through folders, an email notification pinged. It was from Chloe, sent to a Toronto real estate developer, carelessly left open on Liam's tablet in the living room. "The house is 200 square meters, prime location, 10 kilometers from Parliament Hill," she wrote. "We'll convince the old man to sell soon. He's stubborn, but we're working on it. My blood ran cold. Convince me? They were plotting to strip away Eleanor's legacy, to turn our home into a cash grab for strangers. The final blow came 2 nights later, as I stood in the shadowed hallway, my boots silent on the hardwood. Voices drifted from the kitchen, Liam and Chloe, their words sharp as a skate's edge. "He's a burden, Chloe," Liam hissed, his voice low but venomous. "This house is too big for him. He's holding us back from a real future in Toronto." Chloe's laugh was a blade, cold and calculated. "Relax, Liam. I've got a plan. We'll make him think it's his idea to leave. A little pressure, and he'll crack." My fist tightened around the door frame, splinters biting my skin. A burden? I'd carried Liam through every hardship: his broken arm at 12, his university tuition, Eleanor's hospital bills. I'd sold my old Jeep to fund his first car, a beat-up Honda he crashed within a year. And now he was scheming to erase me. I stepped back, my breath ragged, the hallway's darkness swallowing me. The betrayal wasn't just about the house, it was about every sacrifice, every sleepless night in Afghanistan praying I'd make it home to Eleanor and Liam. I remembered Eleanor's last words, whispered in the Ottawa hospital, her hand frail in mine. "Keep Liam close, Gordon. He's our heart." But that heart had turned to stone. I slipped into the study, the glow of a single lamp casting shadows over Eleanor's photo on the desk. Her smile, framed in cedar, felt like a lifeline. I couldn't let them destroy what we'd built, not without a fight. The next morning, I drove 15 kilometers to the Ottawa Public Library, the snow crunching under my truck's tires. I needed answers, a way to protect this house. My old friend Douglas Fraser, a retired lawyer from my Army days, had always been a call away. I found his number scribbled in an old notebook, my fingers trembling as I dialed. "Douglas," I said, my voice low but steady, "Liam and Chloe are trying to take the house. I need your help." His gruff voice crackled through the phone. "Meet me at Tim Hortons on Bank Street, Gordon. Bring everything you've got." I hung up, my pulse racing. Liam thought he could outsmart me. Chloe thought she could manipulate me. But they didn't know the man who'd survived ambushes in the desert. I'd fought for this family before. I'd fight again. The weight of Liam's betrayal settled over me like the heavy snow blanketing Ottawa's streets, each flake a reminder of the life I thought I'd secured. Alone in my darkened living room, the crackling lawsuit cast flickering shadows across the cedar walls, its warmth failing to touch the chill in my bones. My fingers traced the edge of a framed photo on the mantel, Eleanor and Liam, laughing on a frozen pond 10 kilometers from here, their skates carving arcs in the ice. That was the winter I taught him to play hockey, his small hands gripping mine as he stumbled. Now, those hands were clawing at my home, my legacy, my heart. I sank into the worn leather armchair, the creak of it echoing the ache in my chest. I'd survived ambushes in Afghanistan, bullets whistling past my head, but this was a wound no metal could honor. I pulled a faded letter from the drawer of the side table, its edges soft from years of handling. Eleanor's handwriting curled across the page, her words written during her final days in the Ottawa General Hospital 3 years ago. "Gordon, you're our rock," she'd penned, her letters shaky but resolute. "Keep Liam close. He'll carry our love forward." My throat tightened, a sob clawing its way up. Carry our love? Liam had called me a burden, his voice dripping with contempt as he plotted with Chloe to sell this house, the one Eleanor and I built with every cent of our savings. I'd worked double shifts at the construction site, my back screaming, to pay for Liam's tuition at the University of Toronto. I'd sold my father's old fishing boat to cover Eleanor's medical bills, telling her it was just a boat. She'd known better, her eyes soft with gratitude. And for what? For my son to stand in my dining room, his words sharper than shrapnel, declaring me obsolete. The letter slipped from my hands, fluttering to the floor like a dying leaf. I stared at the lawsuit, its flames blurring through tears I couldn't hold back. Every memory in this house was a dagger, Eleanor hanging Christmas lights, her scarf catching the wind. Liam at 10, carving his initials into the porch railing with a pocket knife, grinning like he'd conquered the world. I'd thought those moments were unbreakable, forged in love stronger than the steel I'd carried in Kandahar. But Liam had changed, his heart twisted by Chloe's ambition. Her voice echoed in my mind, cold and calculated. "We'll make him think it's his idea to leave." The audacity burned. They thought I was weak, a relic to be shoved into some sterile retirement home while they turned Eleanor's dream into a soulless Airbnb. I stood, my knees trembling, and crossed to the window. Outside, the Ottawa night was silent, snow piling high against the pines, the streetlights casting a pale glow over the 2 hectares of land we'd called home. My reflection stared back, gray hair, tired eyes, but a jaw set like granite. I'd faced death in the desert, watched comrades fall, carried their dog tags home. I'd held Eleanor as she slipped away, her breath fading like a winter breeze. But this pain, this betrayal, was a beast I couldn't name. It wasn't just the house they wanted to steal, it was my purpose, my proof that every sacrifice mattered. "Eleanor," I whispered, my voice rough, pressing my hand to the cold glass. I tried. I gave him everything. The silence answered, heavy and unforgiving. A memory surged. Liam at 16, storming out after I'd grounded him for sneaking beer from the garage. He'd come back an hour later, sheepish, mumbling an apology. I'd ruffled his hair, believing we'd always find our way back. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who saw me as an obstacle. Chloe's influence had poisoned him, her manicured nails clicking through listings for Toronto condos, her laugh slicing through my resolve. I turned from the window, my gaze falling on my old service medals, pinned to a velvet board above the mantel. Each one was a battle won, a life preserved. But this battle, fought in my own home, felt like a war I was losing. My heart pounded, rage mixing with grief, a storm fiercer than any blizzard on the Trans-Canada Highway. They thought they could break me. They didn't know the man who'd walk through fire for them. I wouldn't let them win. The pain of Liam's betrayal clung to me like frost on a January morning, but in that darkness, a fire sparked. I wasn't the broken old man they thought I was. I'd survive Kandahar's dust and death, and I'd be damned if my own son and his scheming wife stripped me of Eleanor's legacy. My truck roared through Ottawa's snowy streets, the 15-kilometer drive to the Tim Hortons on Bank Street a blur of rage and resolve. The coffee shop hummed with the clink of mugs and the murmur of locals, its neon sign a beacon in the winter gloom. I slid into a booth, my old service jacket creaking, and faced Douglas Fraser, my friend from Army days turned lawyer. His weathered face, lined from years of courtroom battles, studied me as I laid out the betrayal, Liam's venomous words, Chloe's email to the developer, their plan to turn our home into an Airbnb cash cow. "Gordon, they're vultures," Douglas growled, sipping his double-double, his eyes narrowing. "They think you're weak because you're 60. You gonna let them walk over you?" I shook my head, my fingers tightening around a folded notebook. "Not a chance, Doug. I want this house locked down. Eleanor's memory lives in those walls. They don't get to touch it." Douglas leaned forward, his pen scratching notes on a napkin. "We'll set up a trust, make you the sole trustee. They can't sell a damn thing without your signature, but we need proof, something to nail them in court if they push back." My jaw clenched. Proof. I had that covered. Back home, I moved like a soldier on a mission, my boots silent on the hardwood. Liam and Chloe were out, probably at some fancy Spark Street restaurant, burning through money they didn't have. I slipped into the guest room they'd claimed, the air thick with Chloe's perfume. Their laptop sat open on the bed, a careless mistake. My heart pounded as I scrolled through their emails, finding more correspondence with the Toronto developer. "We'll have the old man out by spring," Chloe had written, her words cold as the Ottawa River in February. I plugged in a USB drive, copying every file bank statement showing $20,000 in credit card debt, receipts for a ski trip to Banff, a new SUV lease they couldn't afford. Each click felt like loading a rifle, precise and deliberate. Later that night, I rigged my old Army-issued recorder under the kitchen table, its tiny red light blinking in the shadows. At 10 p.m., Liam and Chloe stumbled in, their voices loud with wine. "He's stubborn, but he'll break," Chloe said, her tone sharp as she poured a glass of Pinot. "We just need to push harder. Tell him the house is a money pit." Liam laughed, a sound that twisted my gut. "Yeah, let's say we're doing him a favor. He's too old to handle it." My blood boiled, but I stayed still, hidden in the pantry's darkness, the recorder capturing every word. Their arrogance was my weapon, their carelessness my ammunition. The next day, I met Douglas again, this time at his office overlooking the Byward Market. Snow dusted the cobblestone streets outside, but inside, the air crackled with purpose. I handed him the USB drive and the recorder, my hand steady despite the storm in my chest. "This is it, Doug," I said, my voice low. "Emails, receipts, their own words. They're plotting to force me out." Douglas listened to the recording, his lips curling into a grim smile. "This is gold, Gordon. With this, we can freeze their joint account. You're still a co-signer from Liam's first car loan, right?" I nodded. That account, a relic from when I trusted Liam, was my leverage. "Do it," I said. "Lock it down." Douglas scribbled more notes, his pen moving like a bayonet. "We'll file the trust papers tomorrow. The house stays yours. If they try to fight, these recordings will bury them. But, Gordon," he paused, his eyes softening, "you sure about this? Liam's still your son." I looked away, Eleanor's face flashing in my mind, her smile as we danced in the kitchen, her frail hand in mine during her final days. "He stopped being my son when he called me a burden," I said, my voice cracking but firm. "Eleanor deserves better. I deserve better." Douglas nodded, stacking the papers. "Then let's make them regret crossing a veteran." I left the office, the wind biting my face as I walked through the market's holiday bustle. Shoppers carried bags of maple syrup and Nanaimo bars, oblivious to the war brewing in my heart. Liam and Chloe thought they could outmaneuver me, but I'd learned strategy in the desert, where one wrong move meant death. This house, this life, was my last stand. I'd protect it with every ounce of strength I had left. For Eleanor, for me. The snow fell harder, each flake a promise of the reckoning to come. The Christmas dinner table gleamed under the soft glow of candles, the scent of roasted venison and mulled wine filling my Ottawa home. But the warmth was a lie, the air thick with tension as sharp as a skate blade on the Rideau Canal. Family and friends filled the cedar-walled dining room, cousins from Canada, neighbors from Orleans, all gathered to celebrate. Liam stood at the head of the table, his wine glass raised, his face a mask of false sincerity. Chloe sat beside him, her manicured nails glinting like ice, her smile as cold as a February night. I sat opposite, my hands folded, the weight of a plain manila envelope beneath my chair heavier than any grenade I'd carried in Afghanistan. They thought they'd won, that their plot to steal Eleanor's legacy would go unchallenged. They were about to learn otherwise. Liam cleared his throat, his voice booming over the clink of cutlery. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his eyes flicking to me with a flash of disdain. "This Christmas is about family, but it's also about tough choices. Dad's not himself anymore. This house, this life, it's too much for him. We've decided it's time for him to move on, maybe to a care home where he'll be safe." A gasp rippled through the room. My cousin Maggie's fork froze mid-air, her eyes wide. A neighbor, Tom, leaned forward, frowning. Chloe nodded, her lips curling into a thin, triumphant smirk. "It's for his own good," she added, her voice smooth as maple syrup but laced with venom. "He can't manage alone." The words hit like shrapnel, each one tearing at the scars of my sacrifices, nights in Kandahar dodging bullets, years working overtime to build this home, holding Eleanor as she faded. But I didn't flinch. My pulse pounded, rage and resolve burning hotter than the losu in the next room. I stood slowly, my chair scraping the hardwood, the sound slicing through the murmurs. Every eye turned to me, the air heavy with expectation. "Is that so, Liam?" I said, my voice low, steady, like the calm before a storm. "You've decided I'm done?" Liam's smirk widened, emboldened. "It's what's best, Dad. You'll see." Chloe leaned closer to him, whispering something, her fingers brushing his arm as if sealing their victory. I reached under the chair, my fingers closing around the envelope. Its edges were crisp, its contents a weapon forged in sleepless nights. "A parting gift, then," I said, my tone sharp as the wind off Dow's Lake. I slid the envelope across the table, its weight thudding against the venison platter. Liam's smirk faltered, his hand hesitating as he took it. The room fell silent, candles flickering, casting jagged shadows on his face. He tore it open, his eyes scanning the first page, an eviction notice, bold and unyielding, addressed to him and Chloe. His breath caught, his fingers trembling as he flipped to the next document. A court order freezing their joint bank account, followed by a stack of evidence emails to the Toronto developer, receipts for their $20,000 debt, a transcript of their kitchen conversation calling me a burden. "What is this?" Liam shouted, his voice cracking, the envelope slipping from his hands. Papers scattered across the table, landing near the mulled wine jug. Chloe snatched one, her face paling as she read. "This is nonsense," she snapped, but her voice shook, her composure crumbling like snow under boots. Maggie grabbed a page, her eyes widening as she read the transcript. "Liam, you said this? You called Gordon a burden?" she demanded, her voice sharp with disbelief. Tom leaned over, scanning an email, his jaw tightening. "You were going to sell his house out from under him." The room erupted, voices overlapping, cousins and neighbors grabbing papers, their whispers turning to accusations. I stood still, my heart steady despite the chaos. The envelope was my grenade, and it had detonated perfectly. Liam's face flushed red, his hands scrambling to gather the papers, but Maggie pulled them away. Chloe's eyes darted to the guests, seeking allies, but found only shock and disgust. "It's not what it looks like," Liam stammered, his wine glass clattering to the table, spilling crimson across the cloth. I stepped back, my boots heavy on the floor, letting their world unravel. "You made your choice," I said, my voice cutting through the storm. "Now live with it." They'd set the stage for my humiliation, but I'd turned it into their reckoning. The fallout from the Christmas dinner lingered like smoke over a battlefield, but Liam and Chloe weren't done. Their defeat at the table, with papers exposing their greed scattered like shrapnel, only fueled their desperation. 2 days later, as Ottawa's snow piled high along the Gatineau Hills, they launched a new assault. One so vile it shook the foundation of everything I'd fought for. I'd returned to my cedar-walled home, expecting quiet after the storm, when my phone buzzed with a message from my sister-in-law, Helen, in Nepean, 12 kilometers away. Gordon, what's this about Alzheimer's? Liam's saying you're losing your mind. My heart stopped, the words hitting harder than any bullet I dodged in Afghanistan. Alzheimer's? A lie, spun to paint me as a frail old man, unfit to hold the deed to Eleanor's legacy. I drove through the icy streets to Douglas Fraser's office, the Byward Market's holiday lights a cruel contrast to the rage boiling in my chest. Douglas was waiting, his desk cluttered with legal pads and a half-empty Tim Hortons cup. "They're playing dirty," he said, sliding a printed email across the table. Liam had sent it to every family member, claiming a doctor's report confirmed I had dementia. "He's saying you need a guardian," Douglas added, his voice gruff. "They want control of your assets." I gripped the email, my knuckles white, the paper crumpling like my trust in Liam. Chloe's hand was all over this, her calculated mind weaving a narrative to strip me of my home, my dignity, my name. I'd prepared for this. Weeks ago, sensing their ruthlessness, I'd visited Dr. Patel, a military physician who'd patched me up after Kandahar. At his clinic, 8 kilometers from home, I'd undergone a full cognitive exam, every test proving my mind was as sharp as the day I left the army. The report, signed and stamped, sat in my safe, a shield against their lies. "They think they can bury me," I said, my voice low, trembling with fury. "Let's bury them instead." Douglas nodded, his eyes glinting with the same fire we'd shared on the base. "We'll call a family meeting," he said. "Expose this email for the fraud it is." The meeting was set for the next evening at my cousin Maggie's house in Canada, a 20-kilometer drive through a blizzard. The living room was packed. Helen, Tom, aunts, uncles, all eyeing me with a mix of pity and doubt. Liam stood by the fireplace, his posture stiff, Chloe at his side, her face a mask of concern. "We're worried about Dad," Liam began, his voice rehearsed. "He's been forgetting things, acting erratic. We've got a doctor's report." He held up a forged document, the paper trembling in his hand. Chloe chimed in, her tone soft but venomous. "We just want to protect him. A care home is best." My stomach churned, the betrayal cutting deeper than ever. They were selling me out to the people I loved, twisting my strength into weakness. I stood, my boots heavy on Maggie's hardwood floor, and pulled Dr. Patel's report from my jacket. "This is the truth," I said, my voice steady as steel, tossing the document onto the coffee table. "My mind is clear, tested and certified by a military doctor who's known me for 20 years. The room fell silent, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Maggie snatched the report, her eyes scanning it, then turned to Liam. "You lied?" she demanded, her voice sharp as an Ottawa wind. Tom grabbed the forged email, comparing it to my report, his face darkening. "This is fake, Liam. You made this up?" Liam stammered, his face flushing. It's a misunderstanding." Chloe's composure cracked, her eyes darting to the door. "We were trying to help," she insisted, but her voice shook like thin ice. The family erupted, voices clashing, accusations flying. Helen tore into Liam, her words fierce. "You'd shame your father, a veteran, for money." I stood still, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. The forged email, their last desperate play, had collapsed under the weight of truth. Liam's shoulders slumped, his face a mask of panic. Chloe grabbed his arm, her nails digging in, but there was no escape. They'd gambled and lost. I turned to Maggie, my voice calm but cold. "They wanted my home. Now they've got nothing." The room's heat couldn't touch the ice in my words. I'd won this round, but the war wasn't over. The air in Maggie's Canada living room hung heavy. The fires crackled, drowned by the chaos of voices. Liam's forged email, claiming I had Alzheimer's, lay exposed on the coffee table, its lies shredded by Dr. Patel's report proving my mind was as sharp as ever. My victory was undeniable, but it tasted bitter, like the dregs of a Tim Hortons coffee left too long. Liam slumped in a chair, his face pale, the forged document crumpled in his fist. Chloe stood rigid, her manicured nails digging into her palms, her eyes darting for an escape that didn't exist. The family, Helen, Tom, aunts, uncles, stared at them with a mix of disgust and betrayal, their trust in Liam and Chloe shattered like ice on the Ottawa River. I stood by the window, the snow falling outside, my heart a battlefield of triumph and grief. I'd protected Eleanor's legacy, but at what cost? Maggie broke the silence, her voice cutting through the tension like a skate through fresh ice. "Liam, how could you?" she demanded, clutching my medical report. "Your father fought for this country, built this family, and you try to lock him away for a quick buck?" Liam's head snapped up, his eyes wild. "It wasn't like that, Maggie. We were trying to secure our future." His voice cracked, desperate, but it only fueled the room's anger. Tom stepped forward, his fists clenched, a retired mechanic from Orleans who'd always admired my service. "Secure your future by lying about Gordon's health, by selling his home? You're a disgrace." Chloe tried to intervene, her tone sharp but faltering. "You're all overreacting. We cared about him." But Helen, her face flushed with fury, cut her off. "Cared? You called him a burden, Chloe. We heard it in his recordings." The words stung, a reminder of the kitchen conversation I'd captured, their venom now poisoning them instead. I turned from the window, my boots heavy on the hardwood, and faced Liam. His eyes met mine, pleading, but I saw only the boy who'd once promised to make me proud. "You had everything, Liam," I said, my voice low, steady, but laced with pain. "This house, Eleanor's love, my sacrifices. And you threw it away for greed." Liam's shoulders shook, his voice breaking. "Dad, I didn't mean it like this." But his words were hollow, drowned by the weight of his actions. Chloe grabbed his arm, her composure gone, her voice a hiss. "Don't beg, Liam. He's just bitter." I fixed my gaze on her, cold as the Gatineau Hills. "Bitter? You tried to steal my life. You don't get to rewrite the story." The family moved now, some gathering their coats, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Helen approached me, her eyes soft with regret. "Gordon, I should have trusted you," she whispered, her hand brushing my arm. "We all should have." I nodded, but the apology couldn't erase the ache. The trust was broken, not just with Liam and Chloe, but with everyone who doubted me. Douglas Fraser, standing by the door, gave me a nod, his legal papers tucked under his arm. The trust he'd set up ensured the house was mine, untouchable. The joint account, frozen 2 days ago, had left Liam and Chloe scrambling, their $20,000 debt now a noose around their necks. They'd packed their bags that morning, their SUV loaded with belongings, headed for a cheap motel 5 kilometers away. Their reputation in Ottawa, once propped up by Chloe's fake charm, was ashes. I walked to the fireplace, my fingers brushing the cedar mantel where Eleanor's photo sat. Her smile, frozen in time, was a quiet anchor amidst the storm. The room grew quieter, the family dispersing, their car engines humming as they left Maggie's driveway. Liam and Chloe lingered, their faces drawn, but I didn't look back. "You've got 30 days to vacate," I said, my voice final, echoing the eviction notice from Christmas. Liam opened his mouth, but no words came. Chloe pulled him toward the door, her heels clicking, her silence louder than any protest. The door slammed shut, the sound sharp in the snowy night, leaving me with the ghosts of a family I'd lost. I'd won, but the victory felt like a wound, bleeding memories of Eleanor and the boy Liam used to be. The house was mine again, but it was emptier than ever. The snow fell gently outside my new cabin, nestled 5 kilometers from Lake Rideau, its quiet ripples a far cry from the storm that had torn my family apart. Inside, the cedar walls glowed under a single lamp, casting soft shadows over a small desk where I sat, pen in hand. The house in Ottawa, Eleanor's legacy, was safe, sold to a young family who'd fill it with new laughter. I'd walked away with enough to start anew here, in this simple space where the ghosts of betrayal couldn't follow. My fingers brushed a blank sheet of paper, the weight of Liam's absence heavier than the medals pinned above the mantel. I began to write, my handwriting steady despite the ache in my chest. "Liam," I scrawled, "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I need peace." The words were for me, a release from the pain of his greed, Chloe's schemes, and the family's doubt. Eleanor's smile, framed beside me, seemed to nod in approval, her memory a quiet strength. I stood, crossing to the window, the snowflakes catching the moonlight like stars over the Gatineau hills. I'd fought in Afghanistan, carried scars for my country, and buried my wife, but losing Liam was a wound that wouldn't heal. Yet in this cabin, I found something new: freedom. Life, like a battlefield, demands you protect what matters, but it also teaches you to let go. As a veteran, I learned strength isn't just in winning, but in standing tall after loss. I folded the letter, tucking it into a drawer. I might never send it, but it was done. The lake stretched before me, its ice a promise of new beginnings. I was still here, still fighting, still Gordon McKay. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Maple Revenge. Share your thoughts. Have you faced betrayal and found strength? Your stories keep this fire burning.